We always get started around 4 minutes after, which is what it is. I'm not sure why, but that's our habit. And hello, you are with us, and thanks for joining us at Astrology Unplugged. Don't ever ask us what unplugged means because we don't know. We're unplugged from something, and it feels good. And it just came to me one day, and it kind of stuck. And that's just how it is. Here comes Erica. Tonight, what we're doing is we've backed up for a couple of weeks. We backed up into beginning astrology because I look at that witch. She beautiful. Look at her. She's just a beautiful thing.
Hey, 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 my pretty.
Hey, my pretties. We have backed up into last week talking about beginning astrology and the signs. And I'm not going to do much with it. I'm just going to do a couple weeks of it. Tonight, we're going to talk about houses and transits. And once again, I refer you to episode 154. 154, episode 154, which is Rick DiClemente beginning astrology, and that will take you to lesson number one of a 10 lesson course that I put out here on Astrology Unplugged for free. It's based upon my book, which is The Exquisite Zodiac. Um, and I don't think we heard anybody to rewind and go back to the basics. So if you've ever had basic difficulty with houses, with transits, I'm going to try to cover some of that this evening. Good evening, Chuck.
Hi there. How are you?
Okay, I wanted to share, doing good. I wanted to show you one thing that is happening right now that's got my concern, and you knew it was coming, and just keep your eyeballs open because here it is. Um, it's called Mars opposite Pluto. I got to get my monitor right. Okay, there we go. All right. In the current transits that you see right now, this is the planets right now. You could feel it. I felt it last night laying in bed. I said, is that? What's that going on? I could feel the turbulence. Mars opposite Pluto. Mars almost 29. Pluto 2944. It's going to last 4 more days. Why is that really important? Well, it's really important because it's squaring this new moon in Scorpio. So things are going to get really heavy. It's also squaring that natal problem that we're having with Pluto square to Eris. So when those two planets set off and have tension amongst themselves, and along comes Mars, the troublemaker, you have to watch out for it. So what do we watch out for? We watch out for violence. We watch out for negative talking. We watch out for negative actions. If you got to get into a fight right now, I highly suggest that you skip it for about 4 days because you're going to probably stir up a fight that
I
you
think
did not call for. What'd
I
you
think
say, Chuck?
I said I was just going to ask you when you were ready to kind of get into this. Does this have anything to do with acting stupidly and doing things that might irritate somebody else? Because I did that
Yeah,
today.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what it is, and you're going to have to really be self-honest, is a lot of those deeper feelings have been wanting out. And the more they're repressed, the more they come out distorted. And the more they come out in a, how do I call it? I call it assertion versus aggression. The more you can bring it out in assertion, the better off you be. But the more you've repressed it, the more it'll come out aggressively. And you're going to get yourself in a fight. And Mars Pluto is very famous for people jumping in your stuff.
Mhm.
They just jump in your stuff. And it's got a real good side to it because it challenges you to stand up for yourself, which is a good thing. But boy, don't go overboard. Don't underestimate anybody. but it's going to last just a couple days. It's definitely what you're seeing in the United States election with all these divisive energies that are going on in this fair-minded country of yours.
All right.
Tonight, we're going to talk about following along with beginning astrology. Tonight, we're going to talk about two things that have to do with beginning, and one of those is the houses, how they work, and the other is the transits, how they work. So I have learned not to just be advanced all the time. I've learned to back up and be very basic sometimes, and sometimes that really can help you out, especially if you're missing this little point and that little point. Okay, so when we talk about the houses, let me explain to you how this works. Okay, these are the planets right now. Doesn't matter which chart I use. These are the planets right now. Now, in astrology, these are the 12 houses. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. They have nothing to do with the signs of the zodiac. The signs of the zodiac are on the outside circle. And you can see with the type of wheel style that I choose, you can see that this house goes from 14 Cancer to 7 degrees Leo, over to 9 degrees Virgo, over to 11 degrees of Libra. They're not equal. They're not equal sizes. And this house is always opposite that house, which is always the same exact number of degrees of the zodiac. This house is opposite that one. Second house is opposite the eighth house. Third house is opposite the ninth house. They've even got meanings that are similar. The third house is like the ninth house. The fourth house is like the 10th house, but yet they're a little bit different, which is why they get the definition that they do get. Now, if you look at another wheel style that I use for teaching, I use one called European 4. Here's the reason why. The European 4 is really good to teach with because it has the houses, it also has the signs. So here you see them together. I don't use it because it gets too much stuff in my way, but you got the Gemini sign, you got the second house, you got the third house, which goes from 23 of Gemini over to 14 degrees of Cancer. So these are your houses on the inside. On the outside are your equidistant signs of the zodiac. Now, the houses, you could think of the houses like putting a piece of plastic over top of the chart. The houses, the first house is always over here. The seventh house is always over here. I don't know what sign it'll be, but the first house is always here. The 10th house is always up here. The fourth house is always down here. Okay? Now, what rotates is the signs, the houses rotate through the zodiac, and so do the planets, but they do differently. So you see that when the sun is near the top, you can see a new moon is forming for 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. You can see there's the 10th house. When the sun is in this area, it's around noon. When the sun is around this area, it's always around sunrise. This is always around sunset. So you can see right now, the sun and moon are both setting in the sign of Scorpio. This is near midnight or near the darkest of the dark in the evening. Now, so the houses are invented by philosophers and mathematicians to talk about how long does that planet take to go through that area of the sky? So even though this house looks little and this house looks big, it takes that planet the same amount of time to go through this house and as it does through this house. And that's because of the tilt of the Earth. Okay? That's what confuses people. A lot of people get confused in beginning astrology because of this. So if you watch this tonight, if you watch this tonight, let's see here. Okay. Okay. Here it's on clock. You can see the clock. You didn't get it. You didn't get it yet. Okay. You can see in the clock up here, the clock is ticking. 7:15:38, 7:15:43, 7:15:45. As the clock ticks, this whole zodiac will turn. If you watch this, see, this just went from '07 to '08. Okay, it just went from '07 to '08 to '09. Now it's on 10, 11. These are the minutes, not the degrees. In each degree, there's 60 minutes. So you can see it's now on 13 minutes, 0 degrees, 14 minutes, 0 degrees, 15 minutes. You can see it changing. And it will go and the whole zodiac will move accordingly. The whole zodiac will move clockwise. Now, why are the houses houses? When you put the planets in the signs, that's like saying I've got a Chevy Corvair. I've got a Chevy Corvette. What kind of energy is in what sign? So when you got Mars in Leo, you got your Mars energy in a boisterous sign like Leo, aggressive, dynamic, happy, boisterous. When you got Venus in Cancer, you got that soft energy in a very soft sign. When you got Venus in Virgo, you got that soft energy in a very picky sign. So that's what happens when you put the planets in the signs. But when you want to find out where the person uses that energy, where does that person use that energy? That's where the 12 houses come in. What field of life do they express that energy in? So we all got 10 or 11 planets in one of the 12 signs and in one of the 12 houses. That's what's confusing to beginners. And you need to get that down very clearly because that's how she works. Now, since the first house is going to be very much like the first sign, the first house for everybody can be a different sign for each person, but the first house always has the reputation of being very Aries-like. It's very much like the first sign of the zodiac. So the first house is very much like the real you, the real self. The second house is very Taurus-like. I don't care what sign is on your second house in your chart, all second houses have to do with self-worth, with money, with values. The third house, what have I got here? Yeah. Yeah. The third house down here, it goes to the nadir, goes from here down to the nadir. This doesn't look like it because the earth is tilted, but this is the bottom of the zodiac. This is the nadir. This is the fourth angle in your chart. The third house is very much like Gemini. It has a lot to do with your mind, has a lot to do with the way you think, etc., etc. So when you see things happening in the third house, you can start to talk to your client about what's going on with you mentally. Now you can see this is now at 117. So this wasn't Taurus. This rising sign wasn't Taurus. Now it's risen to 120 of Gemini. And it'll spend the next 2 hours going through here. So this zodiac looks like it's static, but it's not. It's actually moving. And what you will find, see how Mercury's opposite Pluto across the ascendant right now? That's very intense energy. What you will find if you teach a class or you're in class while this is on the wall, you will see that the subject that people are talking about will slowly start to change in accord to what's rising. So we might talk about things that are very Geminian for the next couple hours. Then all of a sudden, when you see the rising sign change to Cancer, you may see the discussion will start to get a bent towards Cancerian things, family, feelings, etc. So when you got the second house, which is about my self-worth, the eighth house is about our self-worth. You got the third house, which is about my mind. The ninth house is about our mind collectively. The fourth house is about my feelings, my family, my history. The 10th house is about my job, my position in the world. So it goes round and round like that. That's why this book that we have spends so much time focusing on one half of the zodiac versus the other half. One is always self-oriented, one is always other-oriented. The fourth house is always about my feelings, my family, my home. Opposite that is my job, my place, my home in the world. My home in the world. My home with my family, my home with my workmates. That's why when we watch planets go through these areas, that's where an astrologer gets the ability to talk about such matters. Some of these houses can be very difficult to talk about. They're just not simple. The fifth house is about my children. It's about my creativity. It's about my expression. It's about my gambling, etc. The 11th house is about us, our creativity. Fifth house, my creativity. 11th house, our creativity as a group. That's why the 11th house is known as friends and institutions, because it's the opposite of my stuff, my creativity, our creativity. Okay, so this theme continues all through the zodiac. The bottom half of the zodiac is always the my half. The top half is always the our half. It's making sense to you?
Yeah.
The sixth is a difficult house to talk about. It is the Virgo house. Even though the sign Scorpio is here, it's the house is a lot like Virgo. It's got a lot to do with your health, with your work technique, how hard you work, how good you are at your work. And the 12th house is a sense of serving others. So the sixth house is a sense of doing my work because I've got this real need. If you know any Virgos, they got this strong need to do good work. In the 12th house, they want everybody to do good work en masse as a whole planet. So again, you see the self plus the other. Now we see in the seventh, we see seventh house, even though Venus is in Sag. In the seventh house, it's the Libra house. This is a house of partnership, relationships, and real importantly, it's a house of your social position. Like if you're a counselor, if you're a teacher, especially if you're a counselor. So the first house is myself. The seventh house is me plus you. This is me plus you. This is my ability to be myself, to understand myself. This is my ability to understand me plus you. So it's always that. And I really did take a revolutionary perception of the houses when I did the book, because so many of the books um, narrow these definitions down to um, definitions which are rather glib and they don't really make a lot of sense. So that's why I'm giving it to you now in terms of the me versus them. So we saw the second house is my stuff, my money, my sense of self-worth. Eighth house, your sense, my sense of what we share together. How do I deal with my stuff? How do I deal with our stuff? That's why the eighth house is known as other people's money. It's the IRS. It's big, powerful companies. Whereas the second house is just me and my stuff, my little collection of things. So that's how the houses work. So you can see when you're born, your planets fall into the signs. You know, Uranus will spend 7 years going through this sign. Jupiter will spend 1 year going through this sign, and it'll be in the first house 2 hours every day. This will be in the 12th house, approximately 2 hours every day. Now, here's an interesting house. The third house, which is Gemini-like because it's third, is the mind, my thinker, my brain, opposite ninth house, our brain, our college, our politics. What do I think? What's my local paper route? What's my on-air internet TV show? Small, big, self, others. Me and my mind. How do I think? What's on my mind lately? How is my mind changing in its abilities? How do we change? Am I going to go to school in Europe for a while? How does your country think versus my country? Small scale, big scale. Okay. That's why a lot of times you see people with transits come through this area and they get up and they get on a boat and they sail to Europe or they fly to China and they go overseas when it's going through, when planets are going through the ninth house. Here's the top of the chart, even though it doesn't look like the top. This is actually the very top. It's opposite the bottom, which is the fourth house. This is your 10th house. This is your most public part of the chart. This is your job. This is when you get fired and hired. This is when you get noticed and advancements for your work. You get in the newspaper, noticed for how well you've been doing, your awards, etc. Fourth house is me at home. You got a question?
I do.
Yeah.
Is there a system that makes sense to you to kind of make it easier to remember the flow of the houses from one to the other?
No,
You
no,
just have to
but
memorize them.
you have to memorize it. It won't take long because there aren't that many. You just go out to the internet and there are thousands of
Oh,
diagrams.
no, yeah, I have stuff. I
Yeah,
got it.
there's many diagrams, but what I'm trying to give you is the essence of them. Instead
Yeah.
of memorizing a bunch of words, I'm trying to give you the essence. So if it's my home, it's our home. If it's my home I'm growing up with, it's our home that I'm out in the world with.
Mhm.
That's why I keep giving you the essence of these houses, which is much more important when you're starting to try to translate. The fifth house is my creativity. And the 11th house is our creativity. Now, if you see your fifth house and there's nothing in there, that does not mean you don't have any creativity. It just means that we have to look at for your creativity in different ways. Okay. It's more important what is there as opposed to a house where there isn't. Okay. The 11th house has a lot to do with group activity, activities I do with my friends, activities I do as an officer of an organization, etc., etc. So you could think of the 10th house as my job, how well I do at my job. I'm now a doctor. I got my shingle out. I'm starting to get patients. But then after a while, I get a little tired of that. I want something more. So I advance to the 11th house, which is the medical association, the medical board in your town, the medical politics in politics. So you can see that the houses are related to each other. But yet they're different. The sixth house, three planets in the sixth. This person being born now with three Scorpio planets in the sixth would be a very hard worker with all that Scorpio there and with the sixth house connotation. The 12th house is your God house. It's your it's your hidden house. It has an unfairly negative reputation. It's got reputations like jail and booze and alcoholic and being hidden and being a criminal. So there are many things about the 12th house that are untoward. There are many things that aren't that good, but I believe through many years of work, I believe the 12th house is very, very misunderstood. I think that the secret to the 12th house is it shows you what you need to give up, what you need to surrender in order to be in sync with God. So if the 12th house is anything, it's how to become in sync with God, whether it's your attitude towards church, your attitude towards the Bible, what you think God's attitude is towards you, what you think his attitude is towards your incarnation. So the houses have many, many meanings, and I can't give them all to you because it's just too much to memorize. But you should get familiar with your own chart and look at your own planet that's in a sign and it's also in a house. This planet's in a sign, it's also in a house. These three planets are all in Scorpio, they're all in the sixth house. That's completely different than 2 hours earlier. Two hours later. Now we have 2 hours later. Now the planets are in Scorpio, but they're in the fifth house. You see that? 2 hours later, I just skipped ahead. 2 hours from now, those three planets, which were just in Scorpio in the sixth house, are now in the fifth house in Scorpio. So that's how the planets move through the signs and how they move through the zodiac. Hi, Claudia. It takes a little bit of time to get used to it, but as you move them around, you'll start to understand. It can look confusing because one wheel's turning as another wheel's turning another direction. So going back to my wheel style that I use, let me see if I can find it. Well, we're
We were
recording
so
again.
fascinated, Rick.
I know, I'm sorry.
I should have
Sorry.
said something, Rick.
I know that was your job, John. But anyhow, I don't usually do that. We're talking about transits now. and how a transit can be opposite itself. Another transit can be a right angle to another transit. It can be opposite a natal planet that's not moving. So we're getting to that now. Now you see the chart come to life. Now you see what's starting to happen today with the transiting planets. And this is where you get all your magazines and all your astrology books to try to predict for you what this weekend will be like and what next month will be like. I happened to look up in that corner. They need to make that thing beep. Or it said recording is paused. Okay. Now let's start with Claudia. Now, you've got to get in your mind an understanding how fast each planet moves. There aren't that many. The farther out, the slower they are. The closer in, the faster they go. You don't have to be exact, but you got to be generally pretty correct to have a feel for this. Pluto takes 240 years to go all the way around. So when Claudia is 240 years old, or the USA is 240 years old. Pluto has gone all the way around in the United States chart and it's returned. This is one big reason that things are so heavy in the United States now. So approximately when she's about 70 or so, Pluto will be out here making a square to Pluto. Okay? It just moves slowly. It's not that it moves slowly, it's moving fast, but it's got more distance to cover. So Pluto takes 240 some years to go around the circle. So at some time in her life, Pluto will cross over Uranus. Pluto will cross over her Neptune. Pluto will cross over her North Node. Then you'll start combining the meanings of those things and Plutonian types of things. When Pluto crosses her Scorpio descendant, ruled by Pluto, what do you expect is going to happen to her relationships? This is the seventh house. Let's go back and see. We don't need to get embarrassing to this, Claudia, but just in general, we can talk about 074.
I guess it was sometime in the 80s, right?
Well, I'm going to give it to you exactly. See Pluto moving backward?
We don't see your screen.
Okay.
We just see my chart.
Okay. So I moved Pluto
Hey, baby.
backward. I moved Pluto backward from here to here. I moved it forward and moved it backward from where it is now. So we see around 1994, around 1994, Pluto had been going slowly to this point from here to here. And it goes slowly. And when it's going slowly, you start to feel like, I feel something going on. And in a relationship, let's just imagine for a moment that the relationship has its difficulties. Claudia's sitting there thinking, well, something better give, something better give. I could feel some changes coming. I could feel some changes coming. She feels that Pluto approaching. And then when Pluto hits in 1994, approximately, and Pluto can be very exact, what happens to you in your life about your perception of relationships?
I was a very different person then.
It's okay, just in general, give me one thing that happened in your relationship, the way you relate. What usually happens is you get fed up with other people. You get fed up with people that are using you. That's
Yeah.
usually what happens. And it can be pretty and it can be not pretty, but it's usually the S hits the fan.
Yeah, that's what happened. I was with my
Okay.
first boyfriend, and it
All
was
right.
extremely mm, toxic, abusive, bad stuff.
Okay. And then what start has you felt this coming to you? And then 94, 95, 96, the actions start to manifest. They don't manifest exactly when it hits that line. But as the next couple of years went on, I would think that you started to get a better grip on yourself and your situation, not just with him, but with all your relationships. Is that true?
Yeah, and kind of like all the transits, it kind of, pointed the finger back to me. What
That's
was I,
right.
what was I, how could I allow such, behavior and blah blah blah. But then I met my ex-husband right then, right after I broke up with him. I met my ex-husband, who was he had some key Scorpio placements in his chart, which is
Okay, well
unique.
that can be. And usually when a Pluto person comes into your life, usually they're a Scorpio or they have a lot of Pluto in their chart and they come to teach you how powerful you are. Whether you like it or not, that's what the lessons turn into. You start discovering your power. And if you don't, you start to discover other people's power over you. And you want to do something about that.
Right,
Let's move
right.
on. Let's move on. Okay. Well, you'll get the idea. I know this is something Chuck has been asking about. And as you start to watch the transits go through, you'll
Mhm.
start to see more and more how this works. I got so many buttons here. It's really hard to keep it straight. Okay. Now, Neptune goes slower. Neptune is over here. Neptune goes slower. It takes about 184 years to go all the way around. So when you're 90, Neptune will be opposite itself. When you're 90, Neptune will have gotten halfway across opposite itself. And those can be very important spiritual years. Uranus is a much better planet to teach with. Uranus is 7 years per sign, almost exactly. 7 years, 7 years, 7 years, 7 years. 21 years first quadrant, second quadrant, 42 years, third quadrant, 63 years, complete cycle, 84 years. So let's go take a look at what happened with Claudia when she was 42. Let's go take a look. Um, let's bring that Uranus. Let's bring that Uranus back. Where is it? Uranus?
Jupiter.
Okay, around 2017. Around 2017, Uranus has gone from here. It's going to go about 42 years in half of its cycle. And notice how Renate, God bless her, notice how Renate has been telling us all year that she's around that 84 year. She's around the age of the return. So she's having the Uranus come back to where it started. And that's why you've seen her go through dramatic change in this past year in terms of liberation, freeing herself. She's not the same woman that she was a year ago or even 2 years ago. Now, in this case, we're looking at halfway. Renate's at the full way. In Claudia's case, by 2017, she's about 41, 42 years of age. Uranus becomes opposite Uranus. So what happened at that time?
Excuse me.
I was having some,
This
uh,
is the midlife crisis, by the way.
yeah, I was
He asked
having
you and then he
trouble.
tells you what was going on.
It was indicative of some health stuff,
I'm doing the best I
but
can.
also I met somebody that I basically kind of like, I felt like I was like free in a way that I had never really felt ever.
Yeah,
Like
Uranus, Aquarius, did he show you how special you are as an individual?
yeah, oh yeah,
That's what Uranus and Mr. Rogers does. He
yeah.
teaches you there's no one like you, and you get in touch with your uniqueness. So don't you laugh at me, Chuck.
I just like that Mr. Rogers analogy, and I was trying to figure out what you meant until you said there's no one like you, and then that made me laugh.
There you go. Okay, so what kind of liberating did you do during those years?
It's liberating for me. It's not going to be liberating for most of you, but I would travel more. I'd go away for the weekend constantly. I would do things that I didn't normally do. I
Okay, you freed yourself.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I felt like I could actually just like somebody opened a bottle and went whoosh, and it
There
was
you
great.
go. Exactly. Now let's take a look. When Uranus got to here, doesn't have to be a body, doesn't have to be a planet. When it got to the ascendant, because it was opposite the descendant, let's happen 7 years later. Let's find out what happened when Uranus got to here.
Well, it's happening as we speak.
Yeah, right
Yeah.
now. It's going on 2000 this year, right now. So, what is it doing to you as far as you and your liberating of the real self inside?
It's really internal at this point,
Okay.
and I think I'm just understanding a lot more about how I hold myself back with my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own assumptions and all this other stuff that I put on myself. Maybe it
Okay.
came from somewhere else at some point, but really I've adopted it. And all this shit is like, it's going to, excuse my language, but it's just great. It's
Okay,
really
Dr. John, when you look at this planet coming from the top of the zodiac now into the first house, why do you think she's reporting to us that it's rather a private matter?
Just because it moved below her ascendant, so so
Exactly.
she's looking inward now.
That's
Any planet that
exact.
crosses ascendant makes it like that energy turns inward. It's done with kind of its stay on the public stage and
That's
however
right.
it expresses itself through her. So
That's
now she's looking inward.
exactly and precisely right. Exactly. So let me tell you people how
Is
this
that next
works.
year, though? You're talking about next year, right?
Well, I'm not getting that specific. This has been going on for 2 years, the last year, the next year.
I was just trying to look at, I saw October 31st, 2025, and I wondered if that was relevant.
Well, that's exactly how the test came out here. But with Uranus, it can be a couple-year period.
Yeah.
right.
It can go
It's
on for a couple
retrograde.
of years. Now, very, very good, everybody, what you're seeing. Now, the wrong way to use this, and a lot of people do use this wrongly, is Uranus hits the ascendant. They start blaming everybody else. If it wasn't for you, I'd be free.
Mm,
If you could just cook better, I'd be home more often and not down at the bar.
yeah.
This is how you use a Uranus incorrectly. You start blaming others for your lack of freedom. But we all know this is not Claudia, and Claudia's been picking up on this for several years as it's been approaching. And I will mention to you, as it's been approaching, is when she started populating this class. That's no coincidence either. So she's had the good fortune, the intelligence, the maturity to start saying, this is my thing. I have myself back. I don't have anybody to blame. I need to let go of this and this and that. And when you do so, you fly. Okay, you understand me? So that's how you look forward, Chuck, in a transit. You estimate where it's going to be. Is it, let me show you here. You have to be very studious at first. You got to say, when is, okay, Uranus started out um here. You got to say, when is Uranus going to hit that planet? When is Uranus going to hit that planet? When is Uranus going to be at a right angle to the moon? When's it going to be at a right angle to Jupiter? Now, the aspects. I don't use many just because it gets so busy. I want to know when it's going to conjunct something, when it's going to be opposite something, when it's going to be square something. Those are the troublesome, energized ones that I follow closely. Now I can follow when it's trine or when it's sextile. There are many other aspects, and they can be very telling and very important also. But for most of my teaching purposes, I stay married to squares, oppositions, and conjunctions. So you see what I do, Chuck, is I go looking forward for where is this planet. This is why I told you in your chart, you got Uranus now sitting opposite 6 of your planets.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting for years dealing with you. I've been waiting for years as to what Uranus was going to do as it came across your 6 planets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each time it's hit one of them, it's been a little bit different story. It's been a similar vein, but you've done more and more liberation as it's gotten there. And the only thing I do is I try to clear up your vocabulary. In other words, it's common for a non-astrologer when Uranus is on you to use the wrong word or what it's doing. What's really happening is you are liberating yourself. So that's what I've been trying with you, is just to change your outlook on it. And since I've done that, you've gotten better and better and better at saying things correctly. And in fact, blaming people less. You're not a blamer. And you've been liberating yourself more and more. You've been allowing yourself to do things that you wouldn't heretofore do. So it goes with the nature of the planet and the planets involved. Okay? If Uranus is hitting Uranus, it's one thing. If Uranus is hitting the moon, it's something else.
Yeah.
Then Uranus is hitting your emotional nature. So it's continually piling these things together and trying to figure out how they gel. Let me get back to her chart. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go back. Let's go take a look at Saturn. Okay. When she was born, what year were you born? 74. Okay. Here's Saturn when she was born. Here's where it was when she was born, never moves. Here's the transiting Saturn. In 7 years, Saturn will be here, a right angle to itself. Not much happens, but at age 14, a lot of things happen. That's when so many of us have difficulty in junior high, when people start getting into cliques and they start throwing you out of my group and putting you in that other group. And Saturn opposite Saturn can be very rough, can be very telling, because that's age 14, etc. Then when Saturn gets to 12 degrees of Aries. Here it is. Around 12 of Aries. You see it's 3/4 of the way around. Saturn has gone 3/4 of the way around. It's squaring itself. And now you are age 21. And guess what happens? You're out of the house. You got a car. You got a job. Saturn's hitting Saturn. Responsibility is becoming a great big part of your vocabulary now. Not only that, but at age 21, Uranus has its first square to itself. So Uranus is squaring itself. At the same time, Saturn has squared, opposed, and square itself. And you're getting them both at the same time. So that's why 21 can be so remarkable. Everybody you'll ever talk to will tell you about age 21 being huge in their life, going to college, going to the Marines, getting married, whatever. It's just very common that it's a huge turning point. And then the humongous turning point when Saturn gets to 28. When Saturn gets back from where it started, then your first Saturn return starts to happen. Okay, let's go forward. Here we see Saturn has returned, approximately. Okay, it's in that vicinity. Around 2002, 2003. Around 2002, 2003. Saturn has made one orbit. It ends chapter 1 in your life, which is very much chapter 1 is your youth. Chapter 2 goes on, it opens up chapter 2, your responsible years, your years with your mortgage and white picket fence, get a job and pay your dues. That goes until you're around age 58. Then your second return happens, and the third one happens at age 84. So what happened to you in terms of sobering up? That's what Saturn does. What happened to you around 2002 and 3?
That that was a tough time. I felt I was having a lot of problems in my marriage, and that was when we started talking about moving to Georgia, which destroyed me. But see, if you notice, I have Saturn in Cancer, so some of my lessons have been around. This is what I feel, this is what I think, and it's okay that I feel this way, and you can do what you want, but like there's no sense of boundaries, and there's no sense of it the sternness and the in a good way that Saturn gives us. It's there for a reason, and
Right.
and we need it. We need that personhood to stand like that skeleton in our being, and I didn't have it, so it caused, I think, the harder, in a Saturn in Cancer, I think that's hard, and so I moved to Georgia and I hated it. It was horrible, um but I did it. I mean, of course I did it, obviously. But it was a tough one.
Okay, but you see, everybody, how rare this is. This is somebody that's reporting to you rather positive results from a Saturn return, even though they're not easy. They're not always easy. My girlfriend got up and left me, and I had to quit making movies because the film industry was dying, and I had to go back to school and start all over. After getting a college degree, I had to go back and start to get a computer degree, start all over, and it was painful, but it was getting on the right track. So it's very much like those little toy tracks you have, and the car goes off the track, and you put it back on the track.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a pain in the butt, but at least it's back on the track. So those are very common experiences during your Saturn return. So you've got all these years with Saturn hitting Venus, Saturn hitting Mercury, Saturn hitting the Sun. It only takes Saturn 7 years to go this far. Okay? So you've got to get used to how fast these planets move. When you come inside, Mars goes around every 2 years. It's every 2 years. And it retrogrades for several months while it's doing it. It goes around and stops and retrogrades for several months. Then it keeps going around. And it's about 2 years per sign. And you'll find that part of your life gets ignited. When Mars hits something, you feel like getting this, lighting a match underneath this part of your life, or someone else will light the match for you. That's how the planets work. Okay, Jupiter. Jupiter's a very nice planet usually. 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. And when Jupiter goes over an area, usually that area gets blessed. Usually it gets better. Travel gets involved. Maybe more money gets involved. You get happier usually. You expand your horizons. So each planet has its own speed. And that's why it's really important that you get to know the speed of the planets, etc. Now, any questions on transits? Don't be afraid, none.
I have a question. And it's really for the group. I just wanted to ask, do you all look at your transits?
Yes.
Nice. Okay.
Yes.
Good. You've come to the right place then.
I look, but I don't know what they mean, but I look.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're starting to get an inkling when you start to see what's hitting what, and you start to blend the meaning of this planet with that planet. If Saturn comes into our party here, Susan, what do you think the mood of the party will change like? You are muted.
It would sober up real fast.
That's right. Now Jupiter comes into the same party. What do you think will happen to it?
More fun.
More fun. If Pluto comes into the party,
I wonder, I currently have the Pluto Mars opposition activating some stuff in my chart.
well, it's not simple. It's not
No.
simple. Pluto's
And
not easy.
This is where I don't know.
This is how you translate.
Yeah.
This is all you got to do. Okay, Venus just came in the door. Okay, Saturn just came in the door.
Right.
Neptune just came in. No wonder Neptune's been here for 6 hours. No wonder this party got weird. That's all you got to think to yourself. And what that will help you do, that will help you to translate, because you'll start to see the adjectives that you use about that party, and you'll start to see how they associate with that planet's nature. You know, each of these planets have, I would say, anywhere from 6 to 10 sides to them, sides real strong, and maybe each planet has 2 or 3 sides real strong. Just start playing with them, start combining them together. Say, well, I was having a hard time sleeping last night, and I rolled over and I realized Mars was opposite Pluto. And I was having an unpleasant dream. I can't remember what it's about. And I woke up feeling a whole lot better. And I looked back and saw that that's what it was. Because Mars is one of these planets. Now you get into the idiosyncrasies. Mars is one of those planets that hits when it's a degree away. Mars always hits 1 degree away before it gets there. Sometimes it'll make sure it keeps hitting you until it hits exactly. Usually it stops hitting you after it leaves. But the 1 degree away is pretty much a promise. The sun will hit 1 degree away. The sun and Mars are your two big triggers. They are the ones that when they find things happening, they get involved and they trigger things.
So if Pluto and Mars are opposite each other, and if in your chart they're also conjunct planets as they transit through, I don't know what to make of how that changes.
Okay, you've got Mars and Pluto conjunct in the natal chart.
No, I have Pluto conjunct Chiron, and opposite that, I've
All
got
right. You're going to have to bring me back once I turn this off now. I'm going to go look. All right. Now, here's your chart. This is your chart, right?
Yep.
You're born in Hollywood?
yeah.
Wasn't that cool? Okay. So, you're saying that in your natal chart, you have a Mars opposite Pluto.
No, well, I do that as well, but
Well,
it's
let's start from scratch. You've got Mars opposite Pluto. So you have a natural fight between these two planets. That's not too bad because the orb is not that close.
okay.
And it's out of sign.
But
This is not Pisces Virgo. This is not Leo Aquarius. This is Pisces Leo. So it's out of sign and it's a wide orb. But we do have some dalliances between Mars and Pluto. Okay. In your birth chart.
so the
Just-
opposition that
Just let it be. Let that sink in what I just said to you.
okay.
You've got a natal issue with these two planets. You got two kids in the back seat that tend to get into fights. They don't always, but they tend to. That's what this means.
Okay.
Versus another two kids that are always fighting all the time, and you want to slap them. Okay. So you got this somewhat tendency to get into a little fight between these two, but it's not real bad.
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Now, we go find where transiting Pluto is right now. Transiting Pluto's going all over this right now.
Yes.
Okay? It's square, it's hitting these two planets, it's squaring this one. So
Right.
Pluto is all over this triangle. It's got nothing to do with the Pluto Mars.
No. But
Okay, but that's what Pluto's doing. But now, while it's doing that, and Pluto's been doing this for months, we happen to see that Mars has
Yeah.
come toward here.
no, it's down. It's right between Uranus and Cancer right now, isn't it?
I
Yeah.
can't
In
see.
Uranus and Jupiter,
Yeah.
Cancer.
I
It's at
can't see because my screen has too many.
it's approaching her Uranus.
Okay, so Mars is here now. All right.
28 degrees, so it's
All
like
right.
back in the
Oh.
middle.
So the tension and the new moon is forming here,
Okay.
and Mars and Pluto are here.
Yes.
You got Mars and Pluto here. And what do you think they're going to do? They're going to agitate any natural fight that's been hanging around between Jupiter and Uranus and Chiron.
Okay.
So you've got 5 planets involved now,
Yes.
maybe 6. 6 with Neptune. Okay, so you got Mars, Pluto really wanting to blow up this issue here. Now, since you are so Neptunian, so many times, because you're T squared in Neptune, so many times I ask you what something means, and you say, well, I'm not sure. Well, I can tell you right now, this is very heavy duty, but you still might say to me that you're not sure, because that's what Neptune people do. So, all your life, we have to examine, all your life, we have to examine what does this triangle mean? Because this triangle has TNT on all three sides of it right now. So how can you interpret what's going on with this triangle unless you know what's going on with this triangle in the natal sense? And in your natal sense, you got the Jupiter Uranus opposite Chiron and Capricorn with a T squared to Neptune. That's really not that bad. There's a little, yeah, Chuck.
Is there a significance between why some of the colors are red and some of the colors are
Yeah,
black?
I chose those. I chose soft aspects red, hard aspects black. And everybody that gets solar fire picks their own colors. Okay, so the red ones are softer, black ones are harder. Okay, so you got a natal opposition of these two happy-go planets, opposite Chiron and Capricorn, with a T squared to Neptune. This really is not bad. This is a little bit of a conflict, and I would say the conflict has to do with, is this really real, what I'm doing, or is it not real? There's a tendency to go off and do things that are unreal and think they're real. There's a little bit of unrealism in this here, but it's really not too bad. What this is about doing your work, sixth house, 12th house, doing your work, having a big impact on other people and their sense of well-being with the Neptune here, wanting to help people feel better spiritually, which is what you do. Okay? Now, how would you go further and add to what I just said?
Well, if Pluto and Mars and the
No,
new,
no. Don't tell me about Pluto and Mars. I want to hear about this triangle.
well, the mediumship and the art.
Exactly. Exactly. Tell me more about the mediumship and the art.
So I've been focusing on my readings, drawing people's loved ones in spirit while I give the reading.
Okay, you're telling me what you're doing with it now. I'm asking you, what does the natal triangle mean? What does the three planets mean? Not what the planets are doing to it now. We're going to get to that.
So Chiron is not really Saturn like, is it? So it's not about
Yes, it
responsibility.
is. It certainly is since it's in Capricorn.
Okay, so it's kind of about responsibility and duty,
Yeah,
breaking up the party a little bit over there in the sixth house, making the kids behave.
yeah, that's right. That's right. So you get a sense of discipline from it within yourself. And that's a very good thing. Okay, now you come along and you put Pluto here. You don't even need to think about anything else. Pluto's been going back and forth here. Eris is over here at 24, opposing that point, and you've got Mars over here.
Mhm.
So what you're doing, you're saying to this part of yourself, okay, all along I've been able to deal with this because I've been able to express this energy through that Neptune. Okay, well, Pluto Mars is here now, and Pluto Mars doesn't want it to be expressed through Neptune. Pluto Mars wants to blow it up. Why would it want to blow it up? Claudia, why would the Pluto Mars want to blow up this triangle?
Because she's ready to bring that out of her
Exactly.
spirit. I mean,
Exactly.
the
She's
time is here. The time
the
is coming.
time is now. That's exactly right. Very good. The time is right now for you to bring out these deeply seated, you might call them arguments. I don't know what they are. They're spiritual issues. There's something in there spiritually that's stirring and it wants to be resolved. I think you have a good point there. And the
Okay.
Mars Pluto during the next 4 days is going to do so.
Wow. So I have been wrestling with a spiritual aspect of what I'm doing.
Okay, how could you describe that?
Um, I grew up with the only concept I ever had of angels as messengers, but then that's it. In Judaism, they just don't come up. They're messengers, and you know, you Susan are not going to be like Abraham. You're not going to see an angel. You're just Susan. You're not Abraham. So forget about angels. And so now I'm doing more with art with angels.
There you go. There you go. So now you're blowing up this tendency to blow all this energy from this fight towards Neptune, which has been your peacekeeper.
Okay.
Thank God it's been your peacekeeper, but you're blowing it up. It's kind of like a atomic loop when they blow things up to find out what cell particles are inside.
Oh,
You blow it up to find out what's inside it. So there's no reason whatsoever to be afraid of this or worried about it. What Claudia said is exactly right, and I think you're definitely on track, and it's going to happen in your own words. You're going to blow the thing up, and it's going to look like you're blowing it up. And the next thing you know is you're going to look back and you're going to see that these finer particles have come out. And this little thing has been there since I've been 4, it's coming out. This thing here has been there since I've been 7, it's coming out. And it's a very good self-revelation.
okay. Okay.
Yeah, Claudia.
Thank you.
I just wanted to kind of point something out that maybe it'll help Susan, maybe not. Sometimes, with the exception of possibly dangerous transits, put that aside. I look at stuff sometimes and I have no idea what it means.
Right.
No clue. But I think the best thing that I'm learning to do is just live my life as real with myself, because it'll express itself. And then 2 months later, 2 years later, I may go, that was really what that was about.
That's it.
And it makes you, and and that's why I watch other people's charts, because that's how I
That's
learn. Like,
exactly right.
oh, and it starts to like come to life. And
That's
sometimes I just
exactly
don't know.
right. It comes to life.
Yeah.
That's very, very well said.
Thank you.
So it's so complex that you can't define what's going to happen. But
Right.
we know that deep inside you, there's a spiritual gymnasium that's been going on for a long time. And you've been dealing with it for a long time through Neptune, which has a lot to do with escaping. And now you're going to start dealing with it in a different manner. And that's going to be really good. And you might even keep up the escaping and have fun doing it. I don't know. But I think it's very interesting. Let me take a moment here. Did you have a question, Renate?
Yeah, I wonder, the transiting Mars hit just Pluto and makes an opposition to my Pluto. So, wow.
Well, when the Mars Pluto hits your natal Pluto, what it's going to do, it's going to explode that part of you that's been holding back your energy. You're going to be tested to find your true power, to try to find your true courage. Those kind of things are going to come out. You're going to stop taking any flack from anybody else. You're going to just stand up for yourself and get stronger.
Yeah, at the moment, At the moment it goes into my abdomen. I have the feeling my underbelly is exploding.
Yeah, well, it will help you to get in touch with what is that belly trying to say.
Yeah.
You don't have to scream it, but just try to ask the belly, what are you feeling? What are you trying to say? By the way, everybody, next week will be show number 400, and we have a special guest coming to us. And you've all seen her before.
Yeah.
Deneen Joyner will be our special guest if I can get this to work right. Deneen will be joining us. She is a kind of a magician in sense. She is psychic. She is a medium. She is a specialist with past life trauma. She has just moved from Pittsburgh down to Houston, and then she's now moved to Los Angeles. She will be here to talk to you about any past life trauma that keeps haunting you, how to deal with trauma. She's going to specialize in talking to you about how and what happened to her when she got a reading from me years ago. And when she started applying it, what happened to her life. So that should be intriguing for all of us. So she will be with us next Thursday night, show number 400. Someone will get a big fat birthday cake with 400 candles on it.
That's right.
Yeah. Look at her. She got the things floating by.
I know, I love that. I can't seem to do that.
I can't seem to do it either. Everybody, thank you very much. See you for 400. Everybody have a good evening.
Yes, you
Happy
Bye,
too.
Jenna.
Thank you,
Halloween.
Rick.
Happy
All right.
Halloween.
Bye, Claudia. Bye,
Thank
Happy
everybody.
Halloween.
Bye,
Everybody.
happy
you.
Buddy.
Halloween.
Happy
Thank you,
Halloween.
everyone.
Happy Halloween.